Support comes from Mosby Building Arts, a residential remodeling company guided by discipline, preparation, and attention to detail. Call Mosby.com.
From the St. Louis Public Radio Newsroom, this is The Gateway. It's Monday, February 16th. I'm Abby Larico. Missouri Governor Mike Kehoe wants to eliminate the state's income tax, but some tax experts say the proposal raises a lot of questions.
So if this goes away, there's a significant deficit to replace, or we have to significantly cut services.
Who stands to gain and who doesn't from the proposed tax policy? Coming up after this news on The Gateway. St. Louis aldermen rejected a bill that would have paused any data center development in the city until new zoning rules are put into place. Ward 9 Alderman Michael Browning says he co-sponsored the bill in response to a lengthy Wednesday night public hearing on new zoning rules for data centers.
I don't think there is a need to jump and start approving things that could have some serious risks for our communities.
Board members voted against introducing the bill from the floor 7-8. It needed 2/3 of the vote to be introduced. Among those who voted no are the 10th Ward's Shamim Clark Hubbard, who said she had several concerns about the bill's language and the speed at which it was introduced. She also says many constituents urged her to vote against the bill. The proposed zoning rules would restrict where data centers can be located, install a strict application process, and empower the city to revoke permits for centers that break city rules. Friday marked the last day aldermen could introduce legislation until the spring term. Proposed legislation at the Illinois State House aims to put guardrails on data centers. The Power Act would make data centers pay their own costs and take measures to protect water. State Representative Carol Ammons introduced the legislation late last week, voicing concerns about data centers driving up the cost of the state's water and power.
We deserve basic transparency and to know that data centers won't jeopardize our water supplies. It's absolutely critical that our energy prices don't go up because of these companies and that our water and our communities are protected from the potential harms.
The Power Act would also make it illegal for companies to use non-disclosure agreements. A bill that would give Illinois regulators more authority to control the rising cost of homeowners insurance could get a second chance at passing when lawmakers return to the State House this week. The bill failed to pass on the floor of the House during the final hours of the fall veto session, but State Representative Robin Gable has filed a motion to reconsider the bill and vote on it a second time. Governor J.B. Pritzker called for the legislation last year after State Farm Insurance announced a 27% increase in homeowners insurance rates in Illinois. Pritzker and others say the company has been shifting the cost of disaster-related losses in other states onto the backs of Illinois consumers. Industry officials deny those accusations. Pritzker is scheduled to deliver his annual budget and State of the State address Wednesday. A researcher at Missouri University of Science and Technology is developing a way to use 3D printers to make it easier to test drugs and cure diseases. St. Louis Public Radio's Jonathan Ahl reports.
S&T professor Anthony Convertine is all about printing organs on a chip. That's what it's called when you use a 3D printer to print out a playing card-sized collection of simulated tissues that can be used for research in the medical industry. While the technology already exists, Convertine says his process uses off-the-shelf 3D printers you can buy at an office supply store.
These printers are actually very high resolution and they're really accessible. So when we were thinking about how to engineer this technology, we wanted it to be cheap and easy, because if it's not cheap and easy, people won't use it.
Convertine says he and his team are working on partnerships with bioprinting companies to try to commercialize the technology. In Rolla, I'm Jonathan Ahl, St. Louis Public Radio.
The St. Louis Cardinals are holding their first full squad spring training workouts today in Jupiter, Florida. The team traded several veteran players away after a losing season last year, but manager Ollie Marmol says he expects his team to be competitive.
We traded away several players, and there's a long-term view of this, but I don't see it being very long. I trust the guys in that clubhouse. I think a lot of them are going to take that next step in their careers.
Among the departures are starting pitcher Sonny Gray and first baseman Wilson Contreras to Boston, and third baseman Nolan Arenado, who's now with Arizona. Some would say expectations for the team are as low as they've been in a long time. But as St. Louis Public Radio's Brian Moline reports, at least one young new player is already turning heads.
J.J. Weatherholt was the Cardinals' first-round draft pick in 2024, and he's rocketed through the team's minor league system, getting to AAA Memphis by the end of last season. Weatherholt played shortstop in college, but with last year's second baseman Brendan Donovan now in Seattle, there's an opening for the 23-year-old to be in the lineup on opening day. President of Baseball Operations Chaim Bloom says Weatherholt brings a lot to the table.
The maturity, the purpose, the intent with which he goes about what he does every day, that, along with the talent, that's a pretty rare combination, and it's exciting.
Weatherholt has hit for a high average with a good batting eye and some power at every level. The Cardinals open the season on March 26th at home against the Tampa Bay Rays. I'm Brian Moline, St. Louis Public Radio.
A North St. Louis County nonprofit is out to show that art making offers a path toward a better mental health. St. Louis Public Radio's Jeremy Goodwin reports on a new weekly event in Ferguson.
Fridays at the Spot is a weekly 4-hour open house at the Creative Spot in downtown Ferguson. That's a community event space launched last year by the nonprofit A Red Circle. Visitors to the Creative Spot can drop in and use art supplies, play an instrument, or just vibe to some 90s neo-soul. Community Arts Director Jessica Jackson says the all-ages event is what you make of it.
It's giving happy hour. It's giving community betterment. It's giving, let's go ahead and make content and go viral. It's giving, let's show the world who we are. It's giving, let's come against depression and let's come against anxiety.
Fridays at the Spot happens from 3 to 7 p.m. I'm Jeremy Goodwin, St. Louis Public Radio.
Governor Mike Kehoe wants to eliminate Missouri's income tax. It was a major part of his State of the State address, and Republican lawmakers largely support the plan. Sarah Narkowitz, though, is a Washington University law professor and director of the Low-Income Taxpayer Clinic. She talked about the proposal with St. Louis on the Air host Elaine Shaw and says it's complicated and raises a lot of questions.
At first blush, that sounds great. Nobody wants to pay income tax. And then he talked about, we'll make it up with sales tax and we will tax our streaming services. But in reality, it would be a lot more than that. To make up the revenue differential, not only would he have to increase the base state sales tax rate, which is currently 4.225, but he would have to really broaden the types of things being taxed, right? So services, which are generally not taxable now, would be taxed. But that goes way beyond streaming services. That's like your hairdresser, right? Anything you do in a service-based economy, with the exception of he accepts agriculture, real estate, and healthcare, everything would potentially be subject to sales tax.
Mm-hmm. What makes that far less simple than it sounds?
When sales tax was created in the mid-30s, everything that was taxed, everything that was sold essentially was what I would call a tangible personal good, right? So it made sense if I went to the store and bought some fabric, you can see it, you pay sales tax on it. As the economy exists today, we are very much a service-based economy and moving more and more towards that. So the average taxpayer now doesn't realize that they are escaping sales tax on the majority or at least a significant portion of their purchases. And one thing that makes Missouri unique is we have a relatively low state sales tax rate now. It's 4.225%. But we have a very high or variable local sales tax rate. And so there's over 50 districts in Missouri where people buying things are already paying more than 11% in sales tax. So if we have to increase the base state tax rate, that could go up significantly. And not only would the rate you're paying on what we already pay tax on go up, but again, you're paying tax on all these new additional items and services.
Now, for those, Sarah, who aren't following what taxes they pay closely, can you provide us a sense of what Missourians pay now in income tax?
Yeah, so Missouri's actually already a fairly low income tax state. We have gone recently from 6% as our highest state income tax rate down to 4.7, and it's scheduled to go down to 4.5%. Missouri has also become the first state to eliminate income tax on capital gains. But generally, Missouri income tax makes up between 60 and 70% of the state's general revenue fund, which funds things like, education, roads, healthcare. So if this goes away, there's a significant deficit to replace, or we have to significantly cut services.
Sarah, what do you anticipate would happen to the collection of sales tax in Missouri?
I mean, it's going to have to go up significantly. The premise of the elimination of an individual income tax is that it would potentially bring in jobs to Missouri, and maybe that'll happen, right? But the state of Kansas tried something similar a few years ago. It turned out to be disastrous. They repealed it after 5 years. It did not bring in the economic growth that they thought it would. And so I think, again, this is based on where you fall on the income spectrum. If you are a higher income individual, this is definitely going to benefit you. If you're lower income, it's going to take up a significant portion of your income, and it's going to put a squeeze on you.
That was Sarah Narkowitz, a Washington University law professor and director of the Low Income Taxpayer Clinic, speaking with St. Louis on the Air's Elaine Cha. Our Jonathan Ahl produced that piece. The Gateway is a production of St. Louis Public Radio, a listener-supported service of the University of Missouri-St. Louis. Music by Ryan McNeely of Adult Fur. I'm Abby Larico, and from the St. Louis Public Radio Newsroom, thanks for listening to The Gateway.